Morning everybody, it's Chris here from Serene Education with the 4 majors notice update for the 21st of March 2012. Hi guys, just going to be looking at things just to see what progression was yesterday on the 4 majors, starting with Euro against US dollar. Weekly quite quickly, how's that fitting out? Well, last week's closed hammer on a potential support. We are seeing positiveness through the first couple of days of this week. However, the 20 period moving average is clearly in play as we speak now on our weekly. As I mentioned, if this is going to be a genuine support, then we do need to see a nice bullish engulfing, and ideally 135 would be our target. Prior highs over here, for example. That's on our daily. I'll show you. If you just zoom right out, you can see the all-time highs that we've had recently. Well, not recently, April of last year. And I take the low. This is a fib retracement, and I just zoom in. You can quite clearly see that the bounce 23.6 was played with a hell of a lot, and then we had a break and we traded up to the 38% mark, 38.2, and then we had a retracement since then. As it stands at the moment now, you can see that we are trading above the 23.6, and as long as we remain above the 20.6, then obviously we should see further growth in this. Now taking another fib extension from these highs, these prior highs here in October of November of last to these lows, and you quite clearly see that we had a bandwidth here where price actually hesitated. Quite clearly had resistance, and then so this is good. Once we get above all this, then we got some nice clean air to 135.45, 1350, and above that another little bit of clean air to the institution moving average. So it's very, very important that we do get a bounce and a close higher than the 132.50 today. If not, then what we're going to see is this prior resistance level here at the 130, 113.300 getting in the way again. So very, very important. So as it stands at the moment now, if price can actually stay above these areas here, you had 135.25, then it should bode well for further extensions to the upside. Very, very important. So if we can put those in 135.25, you can quite clearly see the price is trading above that as we speak on our intraday time frames. Great, you can quite clearly see that was resistance before, and for now a nice bounce higher. So great. If price can maintain these levels, quite clearly see here, and the CTC is in our favor, all the moving averages below price, then we should see price potentially, hopefully, sticking to the upside. So let me just grab this trend line. There we go. Come here. So you took the wicks, all the bodies, entirely your choice. Just as long as you do a wick to wick, body to body, you can quite clearly see that 125 is now being breached. Let's see if she can stay above here. If she stays above here, then we're definitely going to see higher swings. 130, the 13,300 is a potential area, so could make a couple of pips intraday on this time, and then ultimately between 13,300 all the way up to here, it's just free space. So let's see if she can actually pull this through. If she pulls this through, get a nice bullish engulfing here in the first 4 hours of today or something like that, then it could bode well. All the moving, like over here for example, we had the 50 period moving average to worry about. We had a bullish engulfing on the spinning top. However, 50 period was the one that was actually acting as resistance, and that clearly didn't help. And then we had a bearish engulfing to the downside. Here we need to see exactly the same scenario because we don't have any moving averages to actually get in the way this time. So a nice bullish engulfing here. Price is maintaining above 13,2500 will definitely bode well for further sentiment upside for this week. Let's have a look at our hourly entry counter. You can quite clearly see we've been trading above the RSI since 16th, making highs using the 50 period moving average as a nice support area in some cases. Pullbacks along the way and nice pullbacks and bounces. Fantastic trades. This all above the moving averages now. 20 period is about to be tested this morning, but you can see this bearish candle is testing prior resistance at 130, 13,2500 I mentioned. If we can stay above here, then we could see further progression. We are seeing divergence on the RSI. You can quite clearly see as we're heading higher, our RSI is giving us a slowdown indication, saying heads up, there's more sentiment for negativity than positive. That's not a problem. You're going to get this around prior support and resistance levels, quite strong ones. And the most important thing here to look at is RSI still maintaining itself above the 50% mark. Okay, that's the most important thing. RSI will dictate if we're on an upside trend, a positive upside trend, or a negative downside trend. Okay, as it stands now, you can see we are positive. We are going to a squeeze pattern now, but we're maintaining above a prior resistance. Okay, so if we get a bearish engulfing here and the RSI is still above 50, then it's telling us we're still in a consolidative area. Okay, we're still heads up, so you're not going to get a true sell. You've got to get everything moving higher or lower. Okay, that's the beauty of RSI. As long as it maintains above 50, it's just sentiment. It's just a consolidative sentiment. And remember, we are trading above a very strong support and resistance. We need to see price maintaining that now. And as long as RSI can stay above here and CTC can stay above and all the moving average, etc., then everything is still looking systems go for long. Just wait for a nice support, bullish engulfing, and then bang, entry. Okay, next up is cable. Let's be having a look at the weekly. Now you can see we're starting going into a bit of a squeeze pattern here as the institution moving average starts to catch up with price. 50-period moving average above price, so we have two major ceiling levels above us. Roughly the 1500 to 1600. I don't know if this is going to bode well for cable. I got a funny itchy screw. The longer we go sideways, this starts to play catch up now. We know that this area right here is a very strong support and resistance level, this 5900, and I get itchy and scratchy when I start looking at this chart because we've just been pushed lower, lower, and lower, and we've been pushed into this squeeze pattern. Look at this: lower swing, lower swing, lower swing, lower swing. There's a lot of hesitation here. This shooting star here at a resistance level is still in play. I still maintain that 5900 needs to be breached bullishly, and even then, it's got a lot of work to do. Back up to 5095, 1600. You have the 1600, which is the institution moving average, and at the moment now it's just playing. It's not looking good at all. If you take the prior swing, you can see that we are in place at the moment now. Sterling wise, what do we have today? Well, we have budget figures. That's a big one for us. Annual budget release. Mr. Osborne, I don't know what he's got up his sleeve, but it's important that we see what he has to offer. But as it stands here, this particular chart in the weekly, and if you look at the daily, for example, yes, we're trading above the institution moving average. We do need to hold those areas. We got to be holding those areas. 5900, as I mentioned, very, very strong support and resistance level. Price traded above them, but we had the institution. Price failed to get above them because of the institution. Price got above them and then failed to maintain those levels recently. So it's important that we get a nice bullish engulfing on here, a nice pump to the upside. However, as we all know, the 1600 is also quite a strong one, but if we can maintain those highs, then we should be looking for potential higher bounces. And if things stay the way they are, this is the low to those highs, back to the bottom again, and you can see that 38.2 is that 5900 mark. Got to get above it, and then we'll look at 50% as our next target. Break above 50%, you're looking at 61.8, and 100% would take us back to this prior consolidative range that we saw way back in August of last year. Okay, so it's important that we get above here. The last thing we want to do is be buying into a very strong resistance level. And on our weekly, we seem to be channeled. We seem to be going into this channel type thing. 20 periods below us is not a problem, but you can see that the institution moving out hasn't really given up anything, and the 50% is starting to look lower. It's not flattening out. It seems to be curving slightly lower as we've gone into this past couple of weeks. I don't know if it's going to do with the shooting star here, where they had this false breakout, but we've had hesitation in the past of the institution. Okay, we didn't have a breaking above. Over here we have. So there's clear indecision if we should be going higher or lower. Ideally, got to give us that signal. 5900 needs to be breached. 38.2 needs to be closed above. Nice bullish up candle here. I would definitely think, well, great, if that sentiment can remain above there, then ultimately long term it's looking for highs. Just be careful though. Once we've got a break, fell to break higher than 50, fell to close higher than 50. Here, bearish engulfing, it just fell over. So we don't want that to happen again. I mean, that's the last thing. I mean, not going to foresee this, but clearly if price is trading, then you want to see price trading above 50, and then you take the long. Here it didn't happen. So entry level was never going to be on the table because you had to take the high. The same scenario here. Want a bullish engulfing, then build on that, guys. Okay, so as it stands now, you can see that intraday we probably would see further consolidation. 5900 is still in play. We've been here before. I'm not trading this one particularly at the moment now because it's not giving me enough to actually bode trading it. I have an edgy feeling with cable. She's been very psychotic. It's a word I use. I like to see her definitely give us some definite sentiment that she's looking higher. If not, then I'm not really interested. So you take the low to the high. Yeah, if we see continue resistance at these levels of 5900, then ultimately here at 15, just above the 15800 would be our initial target. Institution still below price, so intraday positiveness starting to creep in. Seeing a lot more blue than red. We are consolidative. You can quite clearly see we're trading between this resistance level and the 50 period moving average. Failure here would see us revert to these areas to the downside. So first port of call would be here just above 15800. Second port of call, break below the institution of 15800 would take us down to 15700, which happens to be a very strong support and resistance level on our daily. Don't worry about these breakouts, these wicks. Those are nothing. You've got to really worry about where prices consolidated around. Okay, it's not going to be a true bounce. It's going to consolidate around these areas. Okay, that's very, very important. And then back down to the 50, which is the price support here below the institution moving average, and ultimately 61. It gets to 61, we should be looking lower. I don't see it being recovering from then because the weekly just looks smacks of negativity, and then getting down to 61.8 is bearish engulfing in itself at a prior resistance level on our daily. We'll just look for everybody just to start shorting this again. So very, very important. 5900, she needs to be breached. And the quicker she breaches, the more likely, the more positive sentiment it is. The longer she takes to breach, the more uncertainty comes into the frame, and people think, well, this is not genuine buying sentiment. Let's start just selling. So a lot looking for potential shorts. So as it stands now, all the moving averages, institution moving average below price. Great, that's the first thing. So we're seeing buying sentiment creeping in on our hourly. Fantastic. However, 20 and 50 are flat. And just telling you that there's no sentiment upsides at the moment now. Okay, so if we take these prior lows here to these highs, because you can quite clearly see we've had hesitation here. Okay, we've got to say ourselves, great, intraday, as long as she maintains above 23.6, which happens to be prior resistance here, you can quite clearly see. There we go, prior resistance, we're trading above these areas here. If she's going to maintain above the 23.6, then intraday we could see price just reattempting the highs here at 5900. Okay, and the longer she goes into this one and failing to break higher, then there's ultimately potential for either one or two things to happen. We could either see price just saying, well, sod it, there's just no buying sentiment at the moment now, let's just look further low, and then ultimately our institution moving average would be our target overall. However, we have to see a bearish engulfing and a definite close below the 23.6 in order for that selling sentiment to group in. The other scenario would be a bullish engulfing, break higher than 5900, support being found, RSI still maintaining these highs. You can see that we're above the 50% mark, and our CTC is still blue. There's no red. We're trading above all the moving over. Well, the most important is institution. So looking for that bullish sentiment to creep in above 5900 to confirm that we should be looking for longs. Until then, I'm out of this. I want a clear break below 23.6 because it's telling me that the sentiment is no longer favoring any upside. We should look for potential a further pullback. Then I start looking at 38s, my 50s and 61s. Or I want price to break higher than the 5900 with momentum. Saying, okay, great. First failure, failed. Second attempt, failed. Third, let's give it. Okay, otherwise, it'll just be trading into negative sentiment. Very important to understand that. Okay, let's have a look at Swiss franc, good old Swissy, weekly. Bearish engulfing or shooting star type formation. A lot of selling at the end of play of last week. At a very strong resistance, well, not as strong, but a consolidative area has us got us thinking we might see some further downside for this pair. CTC remains negative across the board for this one, as the institution is still above price. If we go into our dailies, for example, you can see tweezer top, all the negativity last week. End of play has really brought this pair back down to ground roots. We had a prior resistance here for a first part of February, and then we saw a break higher. Everything was looking good, great for long. I mean, that's what you want, and then it just fizzled out at the next resistance level, and we saw bearish engulfing. This acted as a tweezer pair, so railway candlestick patterns, tweezer, and then fallen lower. So where do we go from here? As it stands now, testing prior support and resistance levels that we saw just recently. Break below. See the last daily, very indecisive. We need a decision candle. You see this indecision candle, very, very important. Got to see decision. And then we act on that. If that decision takes us below this prior support over here, I think great. Then ultimately we should be looking at the prior support and resistance here at 89.50 as our next target. And we get a bullish engulfing here at the bottom of this support. Then we could look potentially back up towards the 50 period 920, or ultimately the 923, 2400 mark as our next potential target. But as it stands now, we've got to see a decision candle. We're trading at a support. We can't risk the fact of actually trying to sell into a support here. I've got to wait for a break of that to confirm that that sentiment is still looking negative, and then we'll trade into that sentiment. Very, very important. For our chart, let's have a look and see what we can do. So lows that we saw recently to the highs, you can see that 61.8 is being tested as we speak on this pullback. This is the last port of call. Break below this, then it definitely just smacks of further downside movement. It just bearish sentiment is creeping, and then look at this drop. Definite drops to the downside. Break below this bearish, then we should be looking at back down towards these 89. What's that? 30, 89,300 mark at least. That's all the moving averages above price. 20 period moving average low, institution above price, CTC in our favor. So intraday, get a break and close lower than 61.8 here at the 9067850, 90850-ish, and then we should be looking short. Last pair of the day is US dollar Japanese yen. Let's have a look. This has just been giving us a fantastic return on time invested. This one, it's just really been blowing us all out the water. Major support and resistance levels on the weekly have been breached over the past couple of weeks, and noticeable support and resistance levels, major support and resistance levels have been targeted. However, we are testing one right now. Price support and resistance through here at 8400 is the next one we need to get above, and you can see price has been trading into that. Last week we saw hesitation as price hit into this. We saw a pullback during the last part of the week, so we need to see price trading above that. If not, with failed continuation going into here, failing to break above 8400 convincingly, we could see consolidation with an outlook of potentially downside to be main focus. If I go to the daily, you can see CTC well extended, all the moving averages moving away from price really nicely, showing us the sentiment is definitely upside favorable. However, 8400 is in play as we speak. Okay, we've had a hesitation here, a lot of spinning tops, doji. We could have a bullish engulfing yesterday, could have another reattempt of this. We do need to get above 8400, and the quicker we do it, the more sentiment is telling us that the bulls still are pretty much at the table looking for further upside drive. Failing that, we see another failed attempt to break 8400. Selling sentiment is not favoring any higher, so we should be looking for further downside. A break of this price swing over here on the daily, bearish engulfing, shooting star of some sort, bearish Aramius, that would definitely clearly signal that sentiment is looking further downside or negative, and we should be looking at moves to the downside. So if I just take, this is our low, and that's our high now, you could potentially be looking at 23.6 as our first target. Yeah, at the 82.20 mark, which will take us back to the 20 period moving average, then back down to 38.2, which would take us back to the prior hesitation area. This was around about the 161.8 fib extension from this initial move. Here at 8100, then back down to 50, 61.8, and then back down to these levels here at 78, or yeah, 78 in particular, which is the institution where we had the breakout, the prior resistance. So as long as it maintains these highs, hugging the underside of this, then the price end is looking for further upside movement. The sooner we get a break away from that and a quick downside, it's going to confirm that we should be looking for a bigger pullback, and these areas here on our daily could potentially be ones to take note of. The 4 hour, you can see, beautiful, fantastic trade, a lot of momentum. 20 period moving average for the first part of this trade, really acting as support. Then it had a nice pullback, consolidation around the 161.8 mark. A lot of people taking profit, and that momentum still driving higher, and then we had the second extension of this. So as it stands at the moment now, you can quite clearly see that price is pulled back from 8400. Let me just draw a line so you can see 8400. There we go, nice. So 8400. in play. Price needs to get above this in order to still be classified as bullish. You can see that going through the evening stage, these highs are starting to become more hesitant now. A lot of indecision, squeezing now. Prior than it's lower than the previous one. So if this maintains, we've got a bearish engulfing. It's going to tell us, listen, yeah, looking at 82, at least down to 82.20 is our first target, and then back down to 38, the 50, 61, and then we're in free fall. So got to see a breach of that 8400. If we go into our smaller time frames, you can see now the hesitation, the 84, as I mentioned here above us. Notice price, the RSI has dropped. That's only understandable as we head into this resistance level. Sentiment has dropped. There seems to be more selling or consolidative bearish. Notice we RSI though, it's still above 50. We are consolidating, but price has dropped. Great, but we're still above the 50 range. There's more happening above 50. Yes, these peaks, as we've headed higher, have got shorter, so saying the sentiment is still not fully bullish. We'll only get there once we get a definite penetration of 8400, but we are seeing consolidativeness as we speak. Very, very important. So the longer she maintains below this, the less likely we can see a break higher. If I take these lows over here, for example, on the 6 to the highs, you can see the 23.6 on the smaller time frame. A lot of support through here. Got to see a break of 23.6 around the 83. What's that? The 83.30 mark. Break of that bearish engulfing, then we've got the institution to worry about. So ideally, if anything, got to get above 38.2 to be definitely confirming this is. We get a nice bearish engulfing over 38. That's definitely confirming that we should be looking for shorts. Otherwise, we risk the potential of just pulling back and then bouncing again and reattempting. Because notice RSI is still above 50. If we get a bearish engulfing and RSI starts to dip below 50 and below the institution, then it's looking favorable for further extensions to the downside, and then we should be looking at 38, 50, 61% retracements as our first targets. That's it, guys. Hope you have a fantastic trading day. We do have some news out today. We have the budget figures for sterling or cable. So anybody who's not in sterling or is looking for a potential trade on sterling, bide your time. Stand aside, wait for the budget to come out. It'll be interesting to see what Mr. Osborne's got. But most of them might be particularly priced into price, so just be aware of it. Let's rather give today sterling to the market. Let's see what she does, and then we can act on it for the remainder of the week. Until tomorrow, trade serenely.